unexpectedly meets the love of his life, Candace, it seems like everything finally seems to fall into place for him. However, when his love breaks his heart, he spirals into a dark pit he cannot seem to escape from. So the genre is romance and drama genre with a dark, loving, deep thought, harsh truth kind of tone. Those would be like kind of the Netflix Q things. Those would be the things that a lot of people would relate to, and that would be the following tone for it. And it would be something of rated R or rated PG-13, specifically for nude scenes and like drug scenes that would be seen throughout the film. Um, the setting is based in Chicago, and it's also based in Chicago's suburbia as well. So it really could go for a lot of different cities, but specifically the vision was for Chicago Midwesterners being Midwesterners, as only a Midwesterner can be. Um, the main characters go as Russell, Candace, Malcolm, and Eddie. Russell is our main character, who is in love, and these are only the like main characters that drive the story and gives the story some force. By the way, but Russell will be our main character who is in love with Candace from the moment he meets her, but he is completely unaware of it. While growing into his own person, he loses a lot of who he is while trying to be with Candace and trying to change for Candace. And through a lot of risky situations, along with a lot of poorly thought out decisions, Russell ends up growing through this film with a chip on his shoulder, finding to be the best version of himself that he can be, even towards the end. Candace, however, is an independent and charismatic character that does whatever she likes, no matter how it makes anyone feel. She doesn't truly care about that. She wants to do what's best for her, and she's always been that kind of character. She's that kind of character from jump. It's probably one of the biggest things that Russell as a character admires from Candace as a character, because she has always been who she is, and he's always wanted to be who he is, be comfortable in himself as well. And that's something that he learns from Candace throughout the film. Candace is also someone who cannot be claimed by anybody, by any man, by any person. She wants to be her own person, so she's carefree and willing to be that kind of way for the rest of her life, which is not a bad way to be. Um, Malcolm is Russell's best friend, and he's often Russell's voice of reason. He tries to keep Russell on the right track, often trying to steer him away from bad crowds, the sort of bad crowds that Russell does tend to get involved into towards the middle and end of the film. But he does try to continue to pull Russell back in towards his side, and help him out. So he'll be seen as somebody that's really good a really great best friend, I should say. And lastly, the last main character, which is more of the like sort of our antagonist, although Malcolm is sort of our antagonist as well. But Eddie, he is the person who introduces Russell to the world of like drugs and partying and drinking and everything like that. He kind of enables Russell a lot of the throughout the a lot of the film, throughout the entirety of it. From the moment that he's in there, he enables Russell to be who he thinks Russell should be, and not necessarily who Russell really is. And though Russell wants to like kind of find an escape from his pain and himself, uh, Eddie enables him with drugs, through drugs and everything like that, to be able to escape himself, even though we all know that's not the right way to do it. Um, and so the cast would be Caleb McLaughlin, who would be perfect as Russell, a young innocent kid who is just figuring out who he is, as it would seem as an actor. So it would be nice that he could portray that kind of person where he could be in a suburbia and in a city setting, and kind of be able to work between both areas and be able to adapt as a character in both areas. So he would be perfect as Russell. Halle Bailey would be a great fit as Candace, as she carries herself as a strong, independent woman throughout the media that you see her as. And she will ultimately be just a strong fit for Candace as a character because she does have a soft look to her, a sweet look to her, and uh, and even though she looks like a sweet person, she could definitely pull off the "well, I'm still all for me, me, me" kind of thing, and I think that's what makes her a perfect fit for Candace. Tom Holland would make a great addition to the cast and crew as Malcolm, being because he has a very likable face, especially right now in the media, and having that voice of reason, someone like Malcolm being that voice of reason, would make people one really enjoy Malcolm as a character, but two really start to kind of push against Russell, which is something that they should be doing, but push against Russell as a main character because because he continues to deny his voice of reason and deny the good people that are around him. So he would be perfect to make people kind of start to hate Russell. And Tyler Posey would be great as Eddie. Because even though he's not necessarily a threatening look or anything like that, he does seem like the kind of guy that can pass off as a party guy, but not even just a party guy, but as an enabler. And his face is looks something like a guy that you can trust. And Russell needs somebody that he can trust, that he can look into and trust, and be able to say, "Oh, okay, if you're going to introduce me to this, I'll do it because I trust you." And that's why Tyler Posey would be great as Eddie. Um, Now, moving on to towards the set pieces. The set pieces for the story, I think that would pop up in the trailer would often be Russell's drug overdose moment, where that's more towards the end. So like we will only show like clips of or scenes of Russell sweating and having a hard time fighting the drug overdose that's going on through his body, having bad reactions to it. Russell partying with people like Eddie, having a good time, being surrounded around a huge cast of people that are just doing the scene that Russell is getting into. I will also show things of Candace and Russell spending time together throughout the city. Their nice late night walks, or in beautiful parts of the city like Millennium Park and things like that, Grant Park even. Um, I will also show throughout set pieces parts of Russell sitting alone, Russell being in his loneliness, Russell, maybe smoking a cigarette by himself or drinking by himself and things such as that manner. So long as it emphasizes the loneliness that Russell will continue to carry on throughout the entire film. Um, and it will also show moments of Russell and Candace spending time with their big group of friends, the original group of friends that Russell does start out with at the beginning of the film. And just to be able to show the kind of connection and how deep rooted they all are as characters together, but also how deep rooted Candace is in Russell's life, especially as the film continues to go on. So those would be like the main set pieces, I believe, for like the trailer for this kind of film. Um, and now I want to go into the acts very quickly and just be able to speak on how the acts would go. So we would start off in Act One, where Russell will meet Candace for the first time, and then after some time, it will probably be in the span in the film specifically. For a few weeks to a few months throughout the story, where Russell finally acknowledges his love for Candace, where he finally takes it by the hand and say, "Okay, yeah, I do feel this way for you, and I want to explore what we have here." And just as soon as they both begin to start explore and realize what they have and realize the kind of love that's there, Candace slips away from Russell and leaves him for good. She ends up breaking up with him and not wanting to deal with him anymore, which is the inciting incident that sends Russell into the spiral from jump, losing Candace. From there on, we go into Act Two, where throughout his astonishment and sorrow, Russell begins to explore the use of alcohol and drugs to cope with his heartbreak. And while he tries every way imaginable to win back Candace's heart, he continues to lose himself throughout the second act, where we see Russell, especially by the midpoint, start to question himself and question what he does and question what he likes and question even the people that he's with, his friends that he hangs out with, even people that he's been hanging out with. He questions people like Malcolm. people that he's known even longer than he's known Candace, people that he's been with since the start of the film. And so when he starts to question that, you kind of just see Russell losing himself as the story continues on. And throughout the entirety of Act Two, Russell will continue to try, and it'll be multiple failed attempts, but have multiple moments of reconciliation with Candace, where he still holds out hope for her and the love that he's lost with her. But the more that he slowly loses her and realizes that he's not going to get her back, the more that he slips into the oblivion of drugs and the city life, the nightlife of the city, the partying, and the depression, even the anxiety that he feels, the anger that he feels, the heartache that he feels. He starts to slip into that kind of oblivion where he kind of numbs his feelings so that he doesn't have to feel that way anymore. Um, and these mistakes of falling into that kind of pattern end up costing him way more than just his friends, because he does end up losing them. It ends up costing him to have a drug overdose and catch a DUI towards the end of Act Two, where he has to now face the backlash of being of his irresponsibility. Now he has to face the backlash of his irresponsibility that he wasn't ready to face. And that brings us into Act Three, where Russell finally rids himself of Candace for good, where they finally have their one last argument where they go back and forth, and knowing why they cannot be with each other, knowing why Russell cannot accept them not being with each other. And in the midst of all of that, he ends up nearly, after nearly going into his overdose and everything like that, has to go into a rehab center and be able to really, quickly find his way back into who he is, why he got there in the first place, and what he needs to do in order to be better. Um, and so, at the end, he kind of just realized that his only true obstacle is accepting of what he cannot control. And that's everything. He can't control anything besides himself. So he only can. So he has to learn how to. At the end of it all, he's just trying to learn how to accept who he is as a person, what he can control, what he can't control, and being fine with that, no matter what the case may be. And ultimately, at the end, he does learn this lesson. He is able to learn this lesson, and he is able to become that kind of person. At the end of it all, the remaining question is, does he ever speak to Candace again? That I do leave in the final scene, where he does see her one last time randomly on the street, except he doesn't. We don't necessarily know if he ever does speak to her or not. That is the big cliffhanger that we just leave as a cliffhanger, because that's the way I love ending a film. So, with that being said, that is my leave behind.